I am so overwhelmed and don't know where to start. Is that what you say? Do you put off doing things because the process seems so daunting? Let's talk about getting started today on Lightly Salted.
Welcome to Lightly Salted. Now let's join your host, Debbie Harmon, for today's podcast.
Half the battle of accomplishing any goal is starting. Where do I begin? I find myself stopping before I even start. I get crippled by the overwhelming task before me because I don't know how or where to take that first step. I almost need to be thrown into the deep end of the pool of the project. Excuses come so easily. Procrastination is a talent we all seem to possess. Do you proclaim, "I'll get around to it tomorrow"? Do you put off things long enough, hoping they will disappear? I will admit that I am having trouble getting this podcast started. I have surfed the web for various things and gone down various rabbit trails, all because I am delaying writing this podcast. In my opinion, one of the hardest things for me to do is just start. There is a famous proverb from Lao Tzu that says, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Regardless of where your journey takes you or ends, in order to get there, you have to just start. Taking the first step can be scary and overwhelming. You are walking into the unknown, but you don't have to take that step in the dark and alone. From the Holy Bible in Psalms 119, verse 105, we read, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." God will light your path. A journey that is 1,000 miles can be accomplished with one step at a time. The Lord will light your way. He may not show you the entire trip and light the whole path at one time, but He will illuminate the section directly in front of you so that you know where to step. Today is the 4th day of the new year. I am trying to establish a new routine. I've heard it takes 28 days to form a habit. I'm hoping that theory is true. The new habit that I am trying to create, I have titled my One a Day. This routine requires me each day to declutter, reorganize, throw away or give away the stuff on one shelf in a closet, in one drawer, in one cabinet, or hiding in one storage box. So far, so good. I must proclaim that I have been diligently consistent in this endeavor. A lot of my house or cabinet cleaning tasks are done because a catastrophe occurs. The dishwasher springs a leak, which requires me to take everything out of the cabinet that's under the sink. This is a chore that I have been procrastinating doing for a long time. I kept telling myself that I'll get around to cleaning out and throwing away all those old cleaning items. However, I never made it a priority. Once the dishwasher starts leaking, the cabinet under the sink next to the dishwasher immediately takes the #1 spot on my to-do list. This causes everything else on the list to take a back seat. Now, all the old and almost empty containers of cleaning supplies are exposed to the light of day and are staring at me mockingly while sitting on my kitchen counter. When the leak has been repaired, and I am confident that it will not return as soon as I do a load of dishes, I must decide what is going back into the cabinet under the sink. The outliers are then thrown into the trash where they should have been for a long time. Boy, do I discover random and often old, outdated things. I ask myself, why did I keep that item? Obviously, the "I'll use it one day" never arrived. When I admire my newly organized and decluttered cabinet, I beam with a great sense of satisfaction. Of course, I vow to not let it get that nasty ever again. Yeah, right. Who am I kidding? When I moved into my house decades ago, I brought along many boxes of stuff that sat in my basement for years, unopened. I kept praying for God to inspire me to go through all these old boxes and get rid of what I didn't need. Yes, I have to literally ask God to help me get motivated. The irony is that if the stuff sitting in the boxes for years wasn't being used, what made me think it was significant enough to keep? Well, God definitely answered that prayer request. One day, we had a terrible downpour. I think it may have even rained for several days. Our basement got flooded, which revealed we had a bigger issue than unopened boxes. Eventually, we had our basement professionally waterproofed. Now, when it rains, we don't have to fret because not one drop of water enters the basement. This flood enabled me to get rid of the stuff in the boxes because it was all ruined by the water. I didn't even have to go through the boxes to see if there was anything I wanted to keep. Being waterlogged required me to throw it all away. Not only did the flood answer my decluttering prayer, but it also forced us to take drastic measures to have the basement waterproof. I'm so glad we did it before we finished our basement. Over the years, I have watched neighbors have to remove drywall, carpet, and furniture from their finished basements because they had not waterproofed prior to creating a living space downstairs. All those thousands of dollars that they invested in finishing their basements were literally washed away. I don't think any of us have flood insurance because we do not live in a floodplain. So all this money was out of pocket and not only cost them double the cost of redoing all that work and buying new furniture, but they also had the cost of removal. Guess you could say the cloud had a silver lining when it poured on me prior to having a finished basement. Once again, I was forced to deal with a delayed to-do list. One time, a closet rack fell because the weight from all the clothes hanging on it. A large number of these clothes should have been given away years ago, but the old "I'll wear it again one day" kept looping in my head anytime I would start to declutter. And Miss Shopaholic continued to supply the rack with newly purchased clothes. When the rack finally succumbed to excess weight from the clothes, I was forced to deal with the pile now resting on the floor. This little catastrophe required me to surrender to the inevitable, and now I was obligated to donate the old clothes. Not only did I have to deal with the decluttering issue, but I was also tasked with repairing the hole in the wall and installing a new rack. Procrastination is a challenge for me, and often it creates more problems that I'm compelled to overcome. Instead of dealing with the situation glaring at me, I defer the chore, which may require repairing or replacing something that breaks as a result. That is why I am trying to be more proactive and practice the one-a-day method. As Barney Fife would say, just nip it in the bud. Since I hate to organize and declutter so much, I must trick myself and take baby steps to achieve the goal. Just like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, but if I don't take that initial step, I won't reach my desired destination. I love living in a clutter-free, clean, and organized home. I like everything to have a place, and for that item to be in its place. I just don't like taking the time to establish this goal. Once it has been established, I enjoy the fruits of my labor. Last year, I started this concept of living more streamlined. 2025 was my year that I dedicated to creating that living environment. Unfortunately, I didn't complete the task and rolled into 2026 with things that still needed to be done. That is why I have christened this year as being unshackled. I have plenty to work on in my life to achieve this goal too, but I am moving forward in my steps of the 1,000 miles. How many times does a medical emergency result in lifestyle changes? Instead of making the necessary adjustments, we tend to put them off for another day. I'll exercise next week. I'll not eat that piece of cake next time. Excuses are easy until they aren't. Maybe we can prevent that heart attack if we are more proactive in changing some of our habits. Why do we wait until a crisis hits us in the face to begin what we should already be doing? The Doobie Brothers had an album called "What Once Were Our Vices Are Now Our Habits." Habits can be both good and bad. A bad habit is called a vice. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to create a bad habit, but oh so difficult to start a good one? Have you ever practiced a great routine of eating healthy foods and working out regularly, only to have all that go out the window while you are on vacation? My husband and I like to go on cruises. It's fun being pampered on the cruise ship. The chef makes fabulous meals each night, followed by even more delicious desserts. I rarely eat dessert at home, but who can pass up that baked Alaska on a cruise ship? And while they do have a wonderful gym on the ship, given the choice between lounging by the pool or working out, the choice is simple. So after a week on a cruise ship, I find it difficult to get back into my routine of healthy eating and working out. I have to push through the sluggish feeling and get back into the habit. In Galatians 6, verse 9, we are encouraged to keep on keeping on. Listen to what is written. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. If we persevere and keep walking on that journey, we will reap a harvest. When we stay focused and persistent, our goals can be accomplished, whether they are losing weight, getting into shape, desiring healthy foods, stopping bad vices, saving money, getting out of debt, honoring our New Year's resolutions, or a myriad of other things. Just as it is hard to get started, it is also difficult to keep pressing on. Quitting is one of the easiest things in the world to do, but does it benefit you? I like to paint pictures using either watercolors or acrylics. I do confess that it is frustrating to me because my skill level doesn't match the vision in my head. Some people are masters at painting. I watch their videos and they freely paint until they reach an amazing piece of art. I want to be like that one day. However, it takes practice. Nothing worth having comes easily. It requires patience and perseverance, but most of all, it requires getting started. I find myself staring at a blank canvas, afraid to begin because I may mess up. Guess what? I have messed up many times. If I am using acrylics, I can usually just paint over it. In fact, I have a 30 by 40-inch canvas painting hanging in my kitchen. I've painted over that picture at least 2 and maybe 3 times. Yet, I'm still not satisfied with it. I'm considering taking it down and repainting it. Even though it will be an inconvenience, it's not the end of the world. I may even end up with a picture that I actually like. However, if I am working with watercolor, it is much more difficult to fix a mistake. It isn't always impossible, but definitely harder to correct. Watercolor painting is fast. Once the paint hits the paper, it is permanently there, for the most part. Needless to say, I have not mastered this medium. It's challenging, but watercolor paintings are so beautiful. I tend to overwork my watercolor paintings. Not only do I have a fear of starting, but once I do, I don't know when to stop painting. I have to walk away from the picture before I ruin it with overworking it. There are times that I will start a project and have no idea of how I'm going to achieve it. When I decided to repurpose a huge TV cabinet in my bonus room, I had a vague idea of what look I was hoping to accomplish, but I didn't have a clear plan. This drives my husband crazy. If I solicit his help, he will ask me what is my plan. Fortunately, he has learned to roll with the flow of my creativity. A project can start out one way and totally end up going in a different direction. I keep a yearly to-do list in my head. On this list are house projects that I want to work on for that year. Towards the end of last year, my laundry room was still a complete mess. In fact, it was getting difficult to even walk in there. Even my patient husband was starting to get annoyed by the clutter. When I haven't worked on one of my to-do list items, if he asks me about it, I'll respond, "It hasn't reached the top of my list yet." I make lists to keep me focused and on track, whether they are written on a piece of paper, on the whiteboard that's on the refrigerator, or stashed away in my head. When we travel, I print out about a 6-page list of items that I need to pack. I know that sounds extreme, but I have spent too many years buying duplicates of things that I forgot to pack for the vacation. Depending on where we are traveling or the season of the year, the list changes slightly. I have even made this packing process a little easier for myself. Stored in my basement are plastic boxes filled with various essential items that travel with us. Each box is numbered and has a list of its contents printed on the outside. This way, I can cross-reference my packing list with the correct box. You would not believe what a time saver this is for me and relieves some of my stress associated with packing. Occasionally, I tweak the contents in a box because I may need to add or remove something. My 6-page list also has to-do items like forward the phone, set the light timers, unplug the non-essential items, and make sure the bills are all paid. I even have a list of all my bills, and I verify that each has been paid before I leave for my trip. The pre-planning may seem like a lot of work, but it really helps with my anxiety of, did I leave the iron plugged in? Which in this day and age, I have an iron that automatically shuts off when not in use, and rarely do I ever iron. What I have discovered about myself is that once I get started on something, ideas for other projects start filling my mind. If I'm writing a book, skit, screenplay, song, cartoon, and even podcast, once I begin, other ideas start pouring in. I get on a roll, so to speak. It's when I take a break for an extended period of time that getting started again becomes an issue. I wonder how many people who have what is called writer's block encounter this same issue. Getting started is half the battle. It is very overwhelming looking at a blank screen. However, creativity breeds creativity. I also find this to be true when I am painting a picture. I may start painting a flamingo. Then the idea to paint a seahorse pops into my head. In the past, I made a lot of my own clothes. I also sewed many of my children's outfits, especially smock clothes and fun costumes. Once I started sewing something, I would think of another outfit I wanted to make. The same thing happens when I get into a cooking mood. I usually spend several days preparing many various meals that can easily be frozen. Just recently, I cooked a chuck roast that had been pre-cut into cubes. From this roast, I prepped my husband many future meals. Some of the dishes that I made for freezing were cowboy casserole, vegetable beef soup, noodle lasagna, and shepherd's pie. Even though it takes me many hours to prepare all these meals, it frees me up later. When I am producing something, I don't like to stop the creativity. If I know that my husband already has a frozen dinner made with love, then I can continue working and he can pop his meal into the oven. By spending a couple of days throwing all these dinners together and then freezing them, he gets to select which one he wants. All he has to do is to remember to remove it from the freezer, thaw it out, and heat it up. When we were raising kids, I had dinner on the table every night. Those days are long gone. I will admit that getting started cooking and doing meal prep is difficult for me. Just today, I told my husband that I am going to make bread and freeze it sometime soon. I know that when I start this bread making project, I'll make a lot of bread, which I will freeze for future eating. However, I have to find a day that I want to focus on this process. So, what are you putting off doing? Procrastination is bondage. I always say, do the thing you hate to do the most first. That way, you don't have it hanging over your head. If my kids had homework and were dragging their feet doing that one subject they liked the least, I encouraged them to do it first so that they could get it out of the way. When you do this, it makes accomplishing the rest of the task easier. Maybe that is why we are required to eat a healthy meal before we can indulge in dessert. What is that thing you hate to do most? Today, why don't you do it first? Is there something you are delaying doing because you are scared to start? Remember, we eat an elephant one bite at a time. Start with a baby step. Get out of your comfort zone. If you don't know how to start or which direction to take that first step, ask God. Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6 tells us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." He is the one who lights your way. Maybe you don't have a personal relationship with God. Have you ever invited Him into your life to be your Lord and Savior? Or have you said to yourself, "I'll do it one day"? Realize that no one knows the day or moment of our last breath. In the New Living Translation of the Bible, 2 Corinthians 6 verse 2 says, "Indeed, the right time is now. Today is the day of salvation." Don't put off a personal relationship with Jesus till tomorrow never comes. Some things demand our immediate attention, and this is the most important thing. I encourage you to begin living your life full throttle today. Don't waste another minute procrastinating due to the fear of getting started. Just start. No time like the precious present. And if you don't like the direction that you find yourself heading, turn around. U-turns are allowed in life. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. If this podcast has helped you to consider not procrastinating, then share it with someone who is also stuck in this rut. Now, just start by taking that first step of your 1,000-mile journey towards your destiny as you live lightly salted.
This podcast is the opinion of Debbie Harmon and is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing is intended as medical, professional, psychological, theological, or any other professional advice. If you would like to see more of Debbie's products, visit her website at www.entertainmentwithamessage.com or www.ewamtv.com. This podcast is copyright protected and cannot be reused without written permission from its owner, Debbie Harmon. Please invite your friends to listen to this podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. Thank you for listening to Lightly Salted.